yeah, for bandwidth, I'll just leave, I'll put off the video, remain the photo, just to make sure then I'm better hard.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
so, yes, Nadia?
can I introduce you and hand over to you?
Yes, please.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for those who have joined us already. We are going to get started just so that we can keep the majority of the time that we've designated for the session. I am so pleased to reintroduce to our community Mike Mushilwa, who is a fundraising guru and a published author. I will spare the time again for just the discussion and the presentation. He is not new to us because we were together last week on the part 1 of this 2-part fundraising series. It was a very lively discussion on alternative methods of fundraising and income generation for sustainability for our organizations. And today we are looking at winning grant proposals. Mike, I'm so pleased that you're with us again. Thank you so much for last week, and really excited about today. So I'll just turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nadia. I know one habit we have as Africans is we meet and we talk. Then at the end of the day, you say, by the way, I am Mike. And the other guy says, yes, I'm Wilfred. It's a pleasure. So we introduce ourselves after we've... So thanks for introducing me. So today we want to speak about grant proposals. And I know all of us write proposals. But my first question then going up to the people in the room is whether, any of us particularly like writing proposals. Do we enjoy it, or do we do it because we have no choice? Yeah, so for those of us who are there, Sam, Ronald, Wilfred, yeah, is it a task we enjoy, or we do it because we have no choice?
I think it is a task that we enjoy. It is one of our responsibilities.
It's one of our responsibilities, eh?
Yes, yes.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Wilfred? I know you've written proposals for long. Right?
I would say it's in terms of, well, enjoying, yes, but the rider is without raising funds. We are talking about institutions, but I think even personally, as in your family, you need to raise funds to be able to keep yourselves going with your basic needs the same, with proposal writing for purpose of community development or development work. Proposals become part and parcel of your life, and so you need to reorganize yourself to enjoy it. It's never easy. Sometimes I know, because it's always a very hectic process. For me, I think I would want to say, because it's in my blood, I enjoyed writing proposals.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Good to hear at least those of you who've spoken enjoy it. So we've got quite a number of slides to cover today, and we'll see what we can do. But essentially today we have 3 key objectives. Yeah, so one is actually to learn what undermines our proposal writing. Yeah, because many of the times when our proposals are not successful, it's not that we didn't have a strong chance of winning. It was because of other things. We want then to pick up a few more skills on writing winning proposals. I know there are people in this room who are also very good in doing it. So it's just to get new ideas, new perspectives on it. And lastly, then to strengthen our proposal writing skills. But generally, there are many definitions for proposals. And one is a proposal is a document that outlines a proposed activity to be undertaken with the aim of defining it, seeking support, mobilizing resources. So we can look at it in different ways, but the key thing is about then describing the activity that you're trying to mobilize resources for, seek support for. So there are basic questions answered by proposals. Yeah. One, of course, is what does the organization want to do? Yeah. Is it you want to work with children? You want to do something about climate change? Yeah. Why is that project important? Yeah. To the people you're approaching. Who will it benefit? So that we are looking at issues of project beneficiaries. Yeah, when will it take place? Is it taking place 2021? Is it a 2022 year project? How long will it be? How will it be implemented? So you've told us about the problem, but how are you going to solve it? How are you going to implement this particular problem? And lastly, then how much is it going to cost? But generally, why we look at, I mean, a lot of us enjoy proposal writing, but I don't know how many of us have the time to write proposals. Yeah, how many of us actually have the right to write a proposal we think we gave it all our best? Ronald, Sam, Wilfred, anyone else?
Yes, for me, I would say when it is time for proposal writing, we dedicate that time, probably for the full week as a team, and then we share ideas. And then I think I would say I have the time to write a proposal.
So you give it all the time that you require. Eh?
Exactly.
Wilfred, do you give it all the time it needs?
Yeah, I would say with proper planning, if there are calls that are released, most times they give adequate time. And so it's a matter of planning. Once we get to know to access that call as early as possible, then adequate time would always be allocated.
For it, eh?
Yes.
Okay. So generally then, when you're writing a proposal, a lot of it just look at, I mean, especially given that these days we have a lot of the templates and guidance from the donors, yeah, a lot of us then look at it as simply putting down something on paper, and we get into the temptation of a lot of cutting and pasting. But in actual fact, that proposal is bigger than that paper. The paper simply gives you, these days we talk about digital space, it simply gives you a platform, yeah, to make your case for support. So you're actually arguing, yeah, against other professionals out there for this partner or that donor or whoever has the money, that investor, to be able to give you that money. Yeah, so it's a very big job. It transcends the paper or the medium you're using, but essentially gives you a platform to be able then to make and argue a strong case to be able to get the money that you're looking at. And when you're looking at a winning proposal, there are several things that you're looking at. One, of course, is the whole issue of suitability. Yeah, we get into the habit again of writing proposals to everything that comes our way. Yeah, but in actual fact, then not all of them are suitable to us in many ways. So whether you're looking at vision, mission, or the work that we're doing, yeah, or even our chances of being able to win it is in some cases we have a 90% chance because of the things the donor or that partner is looking at. Other times then our chances are close to zero, 5–10%. So not everything will be suitable. Yeah, time, again, I mentioned time because that has been the biggest challenge to many NGOs. Yeah, giving it time to develop that proposal. And you'll find people struggling with this proposal at 7, 8 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, because they are too busy during the day, while their competitor, and a lot of the calls that you're seeing out there are open to everyone. They are open to individuals. They're open to all kinds of CSOs. So be they NGOs, societies, faith-based organizations, yeah, community-based organizations. They're open to businesses, corporations, so academic organizations, some government institutions. So everyone is competing for it. And very interestingly now, when you look at the kind of people who are winning the challenge funds and awards and prizes, it's actually young people who are not even in the sector, because these guys can give it all the time that it needs. So the guy can work on it the whole day, or the lady can work on it the whole day. They can focus on it. They are not wrapped up in a sense, in the organization activities that many of us are involved in. And there's an organization I occasionally engage with where I've seen proposals come and they have a chance of, let's say, 90% chance of being able to get that money. And by the time the thing is being rushed out, their chances have whittled down to about 20% or 30%, because they are sending it at the last minute. And there's one friend I have, yeah, on 2 occasions he's got malaria on the day he's supposed to be submitting. So he tells me, Mike, I'm going to see the doctor, then I come back and I send it. Yeah, and he has to get your support to help him develop some input. So time is a big issue, but time also leads to commitment. And looking again at our organizations is we tend to look at proposal writing as being a bit too easy. Yeah, and we don't focus, give it the kind of, focus and attention and commitment it needs. So anything else coming up to interrupt our thing, project implementation or partners calling or whatever it is, yeah, tend to distract us from that core thing. Preparation, again, for it. So a good proposal, like a good case, needs preparation. So if you don't then do your groundwork, prepare adequately, yeah, for to get the information that you need to write that proposal, is your chances again of being able to secure those funds falls. Strategy again becomes important. And you remember the David versus Goliath story, the biblical David versus Goliath. Yeah, when David had the opportunity to go fight Goliath, his king, yeah, King Samuel offered him his arm, and David had to turn it down because it was not going to be adequate. And David then relied on what he knew best, his strengths. Yeah, that was the sling and the stone. And he got the best stones, and the rest is history. Eh? So again, going in, you'll find partners who are bigger than you, who are stronger, who are more skilled, who are better resourced, and those that are weaker than you. So proposal writing also means that you've got to have a strategy within. So looking at the call, what strategy are you going to use to be able then to win that, or to increase your chances of winning that funding? Then the aspect of following guidelines again. Yeah, so understanding that question, the questions that have been asked, yeah, keeping to word limits and so on, becomes another thing that we have problem with. But many of the times, I say that if you're really going to become a guru in proposal writing, you've got to behave like a lawyer. Yeah, so that discipline, that commitment, that desire to win, like the really good lawyers we have in this country, being able to read and really understand what that call is about, yeah, its merits and demerits, doing groundwork. Who is this donor? Who do they support? Like there's an organization I worked with last year in Tanzania to develop 3 calls for proposals. One of them, yeah, I wouldn't say the name, yeah, was going to be a hard sell, even though we did send in a proposal, because when you go back 5 years, all the people who've won money for that donor have been either based in the UK or they are expatriates or people of white descent. Yeah, so the chances of winning that proposal, yeah, were very weak. And essentially then we got back a regret. But we already knew from the beginning the chances of winning it were going to be weak. So going in and looking at who else have they funded, doing your groundwork, yeah, what are their interests, what do they support, what kind of impact do they look at? All this is important. Yeah, working on your strengths. We've talked about David. Yeah, so when you're going in, you're going into a governance project, you hear Transparency International is involved, and they've got this big brand name. You are not transparency. What strengths are you going to use to try to get people then to support you? Yeah, looking at the donor again, what is of interest to them? We are tying it down to groundwork. So the more research, the better you understand the particular donor, the higher the chances that you can win that case. With regard to preparation, we are saying, yes, there are a lot of tempting prospects out there. So many calls that come your way, but you can get into a cycle where you are spending too much time writing proposals for calls or responding to calls that you have a very small chance of winning. So when you're looking then at suitability, you're saying then, how do I critically look at this and focus on those in which I have got a good chance of winning and those that come from partners that I would be interested in working with? Yeah, sometimes again, it's challenging because especially for the CEOs in the room, is you've got to get your overheads paid. So your projects are ending in a few months' time or in a year's time. You need to cover your overhead. So there's the temptation to try to get all the money in. But in reality, some donor funding is poisonous. A donor wants to give you a lot of money to do work, but there's no overhead budget. There's no money to pay staff or pay overheads, or it's too limited. So what you end up doing is, even if you win that proposal, is your staff are busy, they are going home late, their relationships or marriages are breaking apart, their productivity begins to fall, yeah? Yet in actual fact, and in the process, then you compromise your relationship with the existing donors who've really supported you and have been very good, like Bloodwater, for example, yeah? Because you're trying to get too much money in. So not all the money that you get from a donor is good. Some donors actually have poisonous relationships because they destabilize the organization milk it, yeah, without providing the actual support it needs to make that impact. Yeah. In terms of copy paste, especially when it comes to things like the profiles and the rest, that is a big problem within the sector. And we've even seen the thing where people just change the name, yeah, of the particular donor. So you remove blood water, you put Ford Foundation or something else, and this normally backfires. So if you're going to write a good proposal, essentially, yeah, you've got to look out and say, if this donor is interested in water and sanitation, is the experiences relating to water and sanitation are the ones that have to be at the forefront. Anything else that you put in will be put in because you have a strategy. I put in, for example, Coca-Cola. They didn't give us any money, but it has a good reputation out there. It increases the credibility and reputation of my organization. I put in USAID. Yes, we did work there on HIV and AIDS, but I'm telling this donor that if USAID can fund me, then I'm credible enough. So there's a strategy towards what you put into your proposal, and copy paste doesn't respond to those needs that you're looking at. Are we together till there? Are we together?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
We are.
yes.
Yes, we are together, sir.
Yeah, so coming back again, and we'll keep on repeating this, understand your donor. The more you understand the donor, the easier it is to get away in. Yeah, because the proposal, remember we've said, is a medium. It's a platform, it's a tool. Yeah, so if you understand what this donor likes, their language, who they are funding, the things that excite them, it becomes easier then to write your thing in a way that appeals to them. So reading the documents that come, yes, some of them can be long, but let's read them again, and highlight what the important things are. Why is that important? Because some of the language that you use, that was used in that call, is information that you'll integrate within your proposal, sometimes quoting, other times then rewriting it, but virtually saying the same thing. Yeah, knowing what the donor really wants. It's not about what you want. Yeah, yes, you're working with children, you're working with HIV, you're working with water, but it is what the donor wants, not what you want. So don't assume that because you seem to be in a sector that needs help, that the donor has an obligation to help you. No, it's not like that. Yeah, what does the donor really support? So we are looking at, again, going back, I mentioned again, to their websites, looking at the projects they've supported, going back to their mother countries, looking at what that call looks at, looking at things they talk about, the case studies they share, looking at all that, cases they funded in the past. The more you understand, the better. Guidelines are the red rules. So word limits, I know we'll come back to this again. So if it's 300 words, it's 300 words. Yeah, if it's 150 words, it's 150 words. Yeah. What else do I want to emphasize there? Again, there'll be an opportunity for most donor calls, especially the competitive ones, to ask questions. So let's take the opportunity to seek clarification of anything that is not clear. And many of them, like the Americans, USAID will tend then to reply all those questions in a basic email. So you can do that. In other cases, the donor, like the EU, is very good in this, and occasionally the Americans, where they give you an opportunity to come in and they can brief you on that call, yeah, if the money involved is significant. Yeah? So knowing yourself, yes, we assume we know ourselves, but how many of us, again, sitting in this forum really know ourselves? Yeah, our weaknesses, our strengths, our accomplishments, our capacities, yeah, areas we've worked well in, things we failed in, yeah, and so on. How many of us, if I might ask a question, really know ourselves? How many of us really know ourselves? Yeah, Ronald, Sam, anyone else? How many of us really know ourselves? Yeah, or now let me, Caroline Major. I need to be gender sensitive. Caroline, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
How well do you know yourself?
Fairly well, I believe.
As an organization, eh?
Yes.
Okay, then Dan, how well do you know yourself?
We know ourselves because we have a strategic plan that has got most of the information. But again, we have our visibilities to the website, you know, the issues we're trying to address, and we know the thematic areas that we are focusing on.
Okay. Yeah, and things like, for example, knowing the thematic areas becomes very important, because then you're looking at issues and the donor will be looking out and asking themselves, are you aware of the hot typical issues in that particular sector that you're looking at? Yeah, are you going with the trends? If I'm working with people living with disabilities right now, and I write a proposal looking at having a center where I bring in people living with disabilities to live and work there, that is unlikely to gel now, because common practice or best practice has evolved to the point where people living with disabilities are more integrated in the society as a whole. Yeah, if you're looking at the children issues, the government has been against children's homes, yeah, and it's not very supportive of that policy right now. Supports a more of a caretaker guardian approach. So again, you need to be aware of the issues. You need to be aware of best practice, not only within your organization, your environment, your country, but beyond. Because in the proposal, you might even be looking out and saying, like in a project in Siaya or in Machakos, yeah, we found 1, 2, 3, 4 things. And the same thing is repeated by this organization in Brazil, and this other organization in Malawi found the same thing. Although then this, the results in South Africa seem to conflict with the findings in both, we think this is likely then to be a more successful approach to handling this. Yeah, websites, by the way, because many of the calls, especially where you have regulated templates, do not provide a lot of information. So your donors will go to your websites. Yeah, they look at your social media sites. So if your websites are still posting a conference that you held 5 years ago, you're in trouble. If they are too heavy, if they have the wrong kind of information or they present in a different light, you're applying for a water project. Yeah, when your website is all about HIV and AIDS, there's a disconnect. Do you have the statistics? So we are used to saying many children, many community members do not have access to water. Let's use statistics. Yeah, 62% of them do not have toilets. Yeah, or 1 out of 5 people have to walk 10 kilometers to get water. Do we have our statistics? Are we together? Yeah, our accomplishments, again, will come up in profiles. And many times it's not that we don't have something to say. Are we seeing them well enough? Yes, you ran a project with USAID or with Bloodwater or whoever it was out there. Yeah, and you train people. But what was the impact? What did you accomplish? Domestic violence fell by 50%. Or the number of people who attend, yeah, or go to health centers, yeah, with diarrhea, yeah, or waterborne diseases has fallen by 62% since you implemented that project. So all these things are important in being able to develop a strong proposal going forward. So I hope we are together till there. Yeah. So again, the issue of donor interest comes up, but again, looking for the best deal. So there'll be several of you competing. So it's not only then the proposal that best captures their interest, but the one that seems to provide value for money in terms of impact, cost, and many other things. We've talked about groundwork again. The more you know about the history, and people like, if you look at Darwin Foundation, for example, they'll put winners going back 5, 6 years. The Canadians do the same, Global Affairs Canada, I think it is. Yeah, David also publishes. So always take the time to go back and say, who won? What were they funded for? How much? Where is it being implemented? All those things then help us when you're now looking at proposal writing strategy. Remember, we've said we are transcending paper. We are moving beyond just writing the proposal into the aspects of the strategy itself. So fortunately, again, many donors give us templates to prepare proposals. Yeah, some of them can be sourced offline. Others, then you will write into into the forum or the platform you're given directly. And we're all aware of this because we write proposals. There'll be formats, font structure that comes with it, but we're saying don't change that. Yeah, so don't try to make the font smaller so you can squeeze more into that box. Yeah, don't put too many words. And one thing that comes up is writing proposals when you be given word limits of 300, 200, 150, whatever it is, can be quite consuming, difficult for many people. But we say then, on an aside, once you've read the question, write out your thing. Could be 500 words, 600 words when they want 300, fine. Yeah, but once you've decided what you want to say in response to that question or the information they need, then you can begin to panel beat. So there'll always be sentences that can be made shorter, words that can be removed. And as you begin to play around with it as a wordsmith, or you get a wordsmith to do it for you, you'll be able then to focus it to what needs to be done. Of course, the evidence that is required, it must be submitted, otherwise then it weakens your proposal significantly. And then this whole thing about last minute, everyone trying to submit the proposal before 12 o'clock midnight. Yeah, anything can happen. Power can go off. The internet can fail. The system can be swamped. It's always good practice then to aim at delivering your proposal a day early. Yeah. Figures. Here, what I'll mention then is the aspect of figures. So in one place, you had said 5,000 beneficiaries. Then you decided 5,000 were too many for the budget. So you changed it to 3,000, but you forgot to change it everywhere. Those inconsistencies, again, can be fatal. Yeah, weaknesses. You're going in, you're very strong in this project. For example, devolution. Yeah, work with county governments, but it is focusing on women. So it's an organization that is really interested in women, yeah, and women empowerment. So that is an area in which you have been a bit weak. Many times then you can look out for a partner, yeah, who's very strong in that thing and is able then to mitigate some of those weaknesses. And where possible, again, get support letters. Where there's an opportunity to get support letters, do. Yeah, talk to Nadia in Bloodwater or any other partner you've worked with to be able to do that. There'll be aspects of eligible and ineligible costs, again, that you need to pay good attention for. But again, a word of caution is when you're doing the budgets, yeah, when you're writing the proposal, you get excited and you put in all these activities. Then you begin to put in the budget and you discover what the budget was supposed to be $200,000. Yeah, you're getting a budget of $380,000. And then there's the temptation then to begin to work things down. So a vehicle that you had put for 5 million now becomes 3 million. Yeah, transport costs that were going to cost, let's say, what is it? Let's say 500,000 Kenya shillings, now are cut back to 200,000. Yeah, so if you're doing that without going back to check, is yes, you might be successful and win the proposal, but then what happens when it comes to implementation? Is all these things that you made fake already begin to damage your relationship with the donor. And donor relationships are more important in the long term than that initial proposal. Remember, you're getting your head in, and if things work out and you become a partner, you want to be able then to build on that relationship and impact, yeah, to increase the amount of money that you're able to get from that donor and strengthen the relationship you develop over time. Overheads, again, are a thing to watch when you're looking at budget. If your overhead is 50%, 60% of the cost, then it weakens your case. And sometimes it's a matter of presentation. Yeah, is training provided by a training manager, or is it going to be provided, yeah, by consultants or other people out in the field? But either way, then you have to be looking at limited overheads. 15% is what many donors will be comfortable with, some 10%. Yeah, but in extreme cases, then by the time you're passing 30%, not doing too well. Word on log frames. Yeah. How many of us like doing log frames? When it comes down to log frames. Let me see who else has joined us. Judith, you're with us today. How are you doing? Are you there, Judith?
Yes, I am. I am.
How are you doing today?
I'm well.
Yes. Do you like working on log frames?
I agree with you in terms of the bit where we do it last and in a hurry. thinking that we've already captured everything we need to do in the main proposal document.
It's done at the last thing, and it's one of those things that you are stressed and you just want to get out. Eh?
Yeah.
Sylvia Onyango, are you with us?
Mike, Jeffrey has his hand up, just to let you know.
Oh, sorry, please. Okay, sorry, I didn't see that. Eh? Yeah, Geoffrey, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah. How do you find log frames?
It's a mixture. They are interesting when they are done, but sometimes challenging to compile on my side. However, I find them very interesting because they kind of provide a very clear way of monitoring your project if well utilized. Though they are quite a bit challenging to compile. We still find actually we usually mix them up sometimes on.
Yeah, they can be quite challenging. And thanks, Geoffrey, thanks, Judith. Because again, you'll find differences in log frames depending on one donor to the other. And increasingly, you see some of the medium level donors trying to clarify what they want within that particular log frame. But ideally, it's better to do your log frame first. Because once you've got your log frame sorted out, you've sorted out everything else. You know what your outputs or outcomes or your activities, all those things are sorted out. You've thought about it, you put together a concept that is good, it's captured in the log frame. So writing the rest of the proposal becomes easier. Of course, then there'll be differences in the way some of those things are even put in. Yeah, so when you're coming down to terms, it's a slide we'll also look at. Yeah, so what does the donor understand by outcome? What is output to that donor? What is goal to that donor? Yeah, those are things, again, that you need to be clear about with regard to the context of the donor that you're looking at. But again, then when you're doing log frames, is you have to be realistic on the time frames, the activities that you'd be able to achieve within a particular time. And we are coming down to what we said about knowing ourselves well. So terms, these will vary. That's why we are not going to define them here. But you're saying then all those things you'll see in log frames: impact, outcomes, outputs, activities, indicator, means of verification. Find out what the donor understands by them. Again, you're saying increasingly, you're seeing in many calls, donors giving examples, clarifying. So trying to level the field between those who are very experienced and then people who are less experienced in writing this thing, who might struggle with them. So when it comes down to writing proposals, we acknowledge that it has become good, which is okay. But proposals then will have different kinds of sections. So whether you're writing a speculative one, so you found a donor and you're writing to them, they didn't provide any template or anything, but you just want to see whether you're able to get funds or establish a relationship with them. Or the other hand, whether you're responding to a call, the information covered will cover these areas, different words, different forms, but there'll be a project summary or executive summary. There'll be a section on information, again, that allows you to sell yourself. And we're saying in this case, it's very important, again, because this is like the CV of the organization, to be able then to put together a strong organization capacity statement that talks about your capacities, but also work you've been able to do before that is relevant to that particular call that you're looking at. Issues, again, or problem statement will come up, justification, project rationale, why the project is required, different words, but the same thing, who the beneficiaries are, your goals and objectives, the description or then approach and methodology, impact will come up, work plan, monitoring and evaluation, management staffing, sustainability, budget, log frame. So these will come up in different forms, and not all of them will be present in a particular proposal or concept note, but to look out for. And looking at this again came from a proposal. This was from Darwin. So an example of a question from summary. Please provide a brief summary of your project. The problem it is trying to address, its aims, the key activities you plan on undertaking, and so on. Maximum 200 words. So you have a lot of these things coming up in many of the proposals that you're looking at. But again, in the summary, you're saying that this is what then puts your thing down, I mean, to a few words, and should be something that inspires and gets the attention of the donor and encourages them to read your proposal more seriously, yeah, and put them in the mind frame where they want to work with you. Yeah, so there'll be basic information on the project's name, any partners you might have, but very importantly, you'll be thinking quite seriously about the problem that you're trying to address. So this has to be captured in a catchy way. The beneficiaries, again, many of it people want it broken down into men, women, and occasionally, depending on the project, people living with disabilities. The goals and objectives you're looking at, expected outputs and impact. Impact is important. So in this half page or 1 page or 100, 500 word summary you're given, then the information you sell has to be something that inspires your donor to be able to gain interest in being able to support you further. In terms of organization, there'll be things that come up, contact persons and contacts of the people involved. So a lot of donor templates will have that. Mission, purpose, objective. So your mission remains the same. Yeah, your objective more or less remain the same, but the purpose, again, especially those organizations with multi-theme processes, need to be looked at. There's always that temptation to copy paste, but take time to relook at what the project is and again tailor this. Yeah, emphasizing points that are relevant to it. Yeah, so don't just copy paste. Try to think out and say, if this is water, what are the things we've done in water, methodology or things that will be can strengthen our capacity here, yeah, or projects we've run with other donors that will strengthen opportunities to be able then to get this score. Because again, this is your CV. The same applies to your programs and activities. It's not everything. Again, it's looking out and saying, what are the ones relevant to water, for example, in this case, or to HIV in this case, or agroforestry in this case, yeah? Which are the ones then, if I'm not as strong in that, what other activities have I done that will strengthen our case here? So I might have done activities in a project location they're interested in. I might have a strong network with communities on the ground, yeah, and community health workers and others who can strengthen our ability to roll out this program. I might put in less than Americans, like we said before, USAID example, just to show, yeah, or the EU that I'm trustable. I've got the systems to be able to manage this funding. So everything you're putting in, you've thought about, because it is unlikely you'll be able to put in everything that you can do. But essentially then you're showing credibility. Yeah, you're showing the organization experience, skills, and resources available to be able to implement it. Because at the end of the day, you can have a beautiful presentation, but you might have a limitation because the donor looks at it and says, I don't think this organization has the capacity to be able to implement this proposal as it is. So going forward, issues or problems the project is trying to address, again, will appear in many proposals. Again, this is from Darwin. Yeah, so please describe the problem your project is trying to address in terms of biodiversity and its relationship with poverty. For example, what are the drivers of loss of biodiversity that the project will attempt to address? Why are they relevant? For whom? How did they identify these problems? And how is your proposed project? How will your proposed project help? Again, several questions in it that are guides. Yeah, so coming down then in writing this thing, you'll break down each question, yeah, and write a response to all these questions, then put it together and see whether it makes sense, forgetting the word limit to begin with. Yeah, but essentially then, even from that, you'll need to ask yourself, have I answered each of the questions they've asked and answered them well? Then, of course, you begin your wordsmithing in trying to panel beat this thing to the 300 words that are important. Yeah? Problem statement. So we mentioned facts and figures. So going online, e-government is a great source to look at. So what do government figures say? What do other players in the field? Is there an NGO that did a survey? Yeah, is there an agency that has done a survey? What facts and figures are there to support what we're looking at? So showing that you're on top of it, yeah, with statistics, you know your data is important. Stories, sharing some of the stories of beneficiaries. Yeah, so you're working in Kibera, you're trying to push the whole thing about toilets. and they're trying to create your case. And you pick up the story of Atieno, yeah, who was first raped when she was 8 years old, when she was going to the toilet at night, then raped again when she was 11 years old. But only this time she ended up with HIV and a kid. And the rapist, who's well known, was never caught. And you go in to say then, if there were more toilets in the area, of those more light, yeah, then people like Atieno would not be in the situation they are in. So stories then tend to bring the story back home. We see our daughters, we see our nieces, we see our sisters, yeah, and help then people internalize the problem that you're looking at. But again, that whole section about the problem statement is extremely important. Yeah, the problem then needs to link up with what the donor is looking at. So there has to be an overlap. If it's a speculative proposal, then it has to be one that also links up with the kind of activities the donor would normally support. Then comes down to your justification. Yeah, could be part of the problem thing, could be separate depending on the proposal that you're responding to. And it answers the question, why are you undertaking that project? Yeah, but essentially you want to show that that problem, despite being there, is something that you can actually address, and there's a need to address it. It's something that you can do something about, yeah? And you're able then to bring in experience from your past also to be able to support it. So focus on the situation you want to improve, yeah, show that it is in line again with your goals and objectives, because again, could be very interesting, but if you're talking about water and there's nothing about water in your vision, mission, goals and thematic areas, then it begins to raise questions again. Yeah, demonstrating knowledge of that area, by being able then to bring out the issues in your justification becomes important. And then showing, again, people want community participation in many of these things. So how did you come up with this thing? Yeah, is it in previous activities you've had with communities? Did you do a survey in the community? How did you end up with that? Project beneficiaries will appear again in nearly all, if not all, proposals. Again, you're looking at broken out data of women and men. You'll have to come up with numbers that you're looking at. And again, this becomes quite challenging because on one side, you want to demonstrate impact. So it's tempting to put in, we'll work with 20,000 youth, or 50,000 youth, or we'll plant 1 million trees, even if the resources and capacity don't make sense. And this, while it might get you a bit of mileage initially, it creates problems down the line when the donor looks out and says, then why did you plant 1 million trees? So if you want to plant 1 million trees and the donor is only willing to offer 20,000 for that particular program, then you've got $20,000, you've got a problem. So you need to then balance out between the number of people you put up to be attractive enough to your donor, but at the same time realistic enough to ensure that the budget, you're recommending, or the approaches to the budget make it realistic. So if you want to train 20,000 people, yes, might be ambitious, especially if you're looking at physical workshops. But the moment then you start talking about farmer field schools, where you have all these community farmers coming together, congregating in a field somewhere, or someone's farm and talking about education, agriculture, or you want to train another group through digital technology, Zoom, Teams, that becomes possible. But if you're going to put them in a regular hotel workshop, then that becomes a stretch. Are we together till there? Are we together till there?
Yes. We are very together, Mike.
Yes. We are.
So is it making sense? I see Gordon Owino. And Nadia, please let me know if any hands come up. Gordon, is it making sense? Gordon, are you with us? Yeah, I see also Jane. Jane, how are you doing?
There's a hand up with Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, please. Thanks, Nadia, for supporting.
Yes, I just wanted to add on that it makes a lot of sense because actually more often our local NGOs have a tendency of trying to, because of the limited funding from the different donors, So we tend to run up here and there whenever we see any opening opportunity for grant, whether it's within our strategic plan, mission, objectives or not, we seem to run there and keep applying. And one thing I've seen that in the long run demotivates your team, because they invest out of energy in applying together an application for a right application, but for a wrong organization. So I think your point is very critical, that we must make sure that we stick to our mission, to our goal and objectives, not just to apply for any grant that comes up. At PACT, I think that has given us a lesson. And now before we go in for any grant, we really try to evaluate whether it's within our calling as an organization, and we make sure we stick to that. So I just want to highlight that as it was a very critical observation I made in your presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay. So thank you very much, Geoffrey. Yes?
Mike, may I make a contribution?
Yes, please.
I wanted to share this for everyone who has experienced a vetting trip by Bloodwater. You know this already, which should be everyone in the Zoom room actually. But one of the things that we as a funding partner are keen to ask when we're looking at potential partners is whether or not that organization has declined funding when it was outside of their mission, their mandate, or their strategic objectives. For us, that is a real indication of an organization that is clear about who they are and that they are more interested in being effective and driven by what is the actual needs in the community and their mission versus just interested in widening their funding base.
Yeah, thanks, Nadia. And I remember many years ago having turned down money from DFID. It was very attractive money. It was quite a bit of money. But DFID at that time, then as part of their program support, were giving us money for overheads. But they had offered to do 100% in the first year, 75% second year, 50% third year, 25% fourth year, then of course zero, when they exited. And the question we're asking ourselves is, yes, you come in, there's a lot of money, you increase salaries, then you are then under a lot of pressure to get the 25, 50, and 75, and eventually 100%. It leaves the organization in a very treacherous place. So we turned it down. And interestingly, 3 years later, we got the money back. I mean, we told them, you remember we turned down money for ABCD. Can you support us with an equivalent of a big amount to be able to do this other program? And we got it back from them. So that whole thing about being careful, about the donor working in, the money that is coming in, but also being selective is critical. Let me put an example that is not directly linked to it, but emphasizes a point, of our experience when we were joining the job market many years ago. I'm one of those people who had been very active in an organization called ISEC, and then Association of Young Entrepreneurs, which had started with friends of mine. And we never had time to go out and get work experience like everyone else. Short of one small research we had done for the Kenya Computer Institute. So when he looked at it head to head with anyone else out there, we couldn't compete. So what I did first and foremost was then to sit down and of course look at what my strengths, weaknesses, and decide then what was going to push in. So I turned all that work I'd done within the university into experience I could sell. Then secondly, I got the best possible paper. I got Conqueror paper. Then CVs again were hard copies. So went and got a bunch of Conqueror paper. I got it in kind because I asked the right person for it, and only sent out 10 CVs. So there are friends of mine who sent out 50, 100. I sent out 10. I had to decide between the organization I eventually worked with and DHV, DHV Consultants and Deloitte and Touche offered me a job. The same day, January 4th, I've not forgotten, I had to choose one. And after that, I still got another 4 invitations to interviews. So because I was more selective, my ability then and the more strategic, I got more job offers than many of my friends did. And I remember then for 3 years, I was helping people just rewriting their CVs. Not because they didn't have what it took, but they were emphasizing all the useless information. And many of these guys would end up then getting 5 job offers or 3 job offers. So even on this, when it comes down to proposals, yeah, is choosing those that in which you have a fighting chance already puts you in front. And we've emphasized this. Don't just go for any. And in some of them, if a major competitor comes in, there's a recent call from the government of Finland. Yeah, it was last year, I think, late last year. Yeah, and Transparency International is one of the ones that got in. It was a governance thing. Transparency has a history of working with the Finnish embassy or embassy of Finland, and they've got a very strong CV out there. Yeah, so anyone who was putting in a proposal was going to be competing against a very solid competitor. So some opted out, others continued. Yeah, and in the result, in the final analysis again, yeah, Transparency International won. Yesterday, I was looking through some calls, funds for NGOs. So I sent one of the calls from the Americans to an organization I work with. Yeah, and when I spoke to him this morning, he told me, Mike, yes, I looked at this one and I noticed it was single call. And when it comes to single call, single award proposals, Americans will normally give their own. Yeah, so experience has told them, don't bother putting down a proposal. This is most likely going to go to an organization that is either registered in the US or is a US organization based in Kenya. World Vision Kenya, for example. I have nothing against World Vision. Yeah, so all these aspects become important in deciding whether you go for a particular call or not. But once you zero down on a few calls, then you're putting in all that work, yeah, to be able to send a strong proposal across. But even for many donors, even if you don't win, if your proposal was so good, there's a chance that they will remember you and they might call you to bid for something else, or they'll be more open to talk to you when you meet them or you approach them for something else. So it's never wasted. There's always an opportunity then to build on it. Yeah. So going forward, again, goals and objectives will be things that we struggle with. Again, the style will be different depending on the donor. But again, we are saying these are long-term results or benefits a project aims to achieve. Making them realistic, attainable, measurable is important. And as much as possible, again, depending on the project, you'll have focus on one goal, in rare cases, then 2. Yeah, so example, thriving youth-owned businesses in Kwale, for example, as a goal. And as objectives, again, these then enable you achieve your goals. So specific measurable statements of desired changes that the organization intends to accomplish by a given time. Yeah, so we'll focus on what you can change and what can be achieved. So to empower 5,000 youth in Kwale County with business skills over the next 1 year. So these are very simplistic objectives and goals. Yeah, they can be more. But the thing to emphasize here is your goal objectives is at the core. Yes, you mentioned the problem and you've sold the donor on it. You've justified why an intervention is needed. So your objectives then become a very important pillar for your project. So you really need to think about these objectives and say, then are they likely then to deal with the problem that you're looking at? And are they the kind of objectives, yeah, that the donor will find appealing to be able to provide the support we are looking at? Yeah, SMART, we all know that. So this again is picked up from something else. Yeah. Please make sure you read guidance notes, particularly section 3, before answering this question. When a donor puts that down, yeah, in a template they're giving, it shows that people don't take time to read that. So when they tell you go to the guidance note and read it, there's a reason why those guidance notes are there. They are there to help you then clarify the kind of activities or clarify the kind of question that the donor has asked at that particular time. So description, again, the David moment, because you're out against the Transparency International and any. So you're committed to this thing, you've done your groundwork, you've given it enough time to write it, yeah? But essentially then it gives you an opportunity then to demonstrate that you have the solutions to address the problem that you're looking at, yeah? And that the goals and objectives that you've sold your donor on are actually achievable, yeah? So in many of these things, remember we had said you need to read your proposal well. Yeah, you'll be picking up some of the jargon that comes. So language that is used by the donor. Again, language is important. Yeah, each sector, each industry has its language, but again, each donors again will tend to have their language. So if you're able then to use that, you're able then to talk about strategies, yeah, and methods that have been tried. Again, the Americans talk about evidence-based approaches, yeah. The British talk about value for money, amongst other things. But if your approaches and strategies have been used and have been known to succeed, or if they are innovative, you're creating a strong case to show that they are likely to produce the results that you're looking at, then you're on good ground. Again, you'll be looking at your experience, again, to support some of this as evidence. You'll be looking at studies that have been done, yeah, evaluations from other NGOs, from donors, from universities, experiences from NGOs in other countries, Brazil, South Africa, Ghana, yeah? So what are some of the things to show that you actually know this sector well, and the solutions, approaches that you're proposing then actually make sense? Yeah, so well, a lot of people then will be focusing on what you might call village-based approaches, or very localized approaches. If you're able then to come up with something strong that also makes sense, but also then bring in experiences from elsewhere that prove that you can do well, that will help then convince the donor, yeah, that you're on the right front. Again, remember, in this thing, issues of sustainability and impact become important. So even though there'll be specific sections on that later on, you want the donor already to begin to look at your thing and say, yeah, this approach that you're suggesting, this methodology you're suggesting is actually sustainable. And one thing that can also further help you is being able even to refer to a project that you've done elsewhere, even if it's in a different sector, and actually show that you are able to achieve the sustainability you are looking at in that project, and that kind of approach will be able then to help you achieve things. There are certain assets that we tend to abandon in our communities when we move on. So I go to Kwale, I'm doing something with WWF, and we mobilize, we are working with communities. So we mobilize, let's say, 500 people in 4 villages, yeah, towards a project, let's say conserving wildlife. Yeah, so we've got the groups, we've got the meetings, we've got the community-based workers on the ground. Those structures are there. Then the project ends. Yeah, and another donor comes up, Bloodwater, that is interested in doing water in Kwale. Yeah, there's an opportunity then to say, look, we will not have to spend time establishing new groups, because most of the groups that you already have there, yeah, have water problems, are in water-stressed areas, or 3 out of the 4 villages are in water-stressed areas. And this project will be able then to build on those approaches. Yeah. So this project will be able to build on that community infrastructure to accelerate its performance, but at the same time reduce the cost of getting things done. So always look out for hooks, yeah, of partnerships, of assets, of experiences on the ground that will give you an edge in being able then to convince the donor that you're the best organization to do it. Again, change expected, picked up again from Darwin. So detailed expected changes to both diversity, poverty, elevation in this work. This work will deliver. You should identify what will change and who will benefit. A, in the short term, that is during the life of the project, and B, in the long term, after the project ends. 300 words. So that whole thing about impact, yeah, is fundamental, is one of the most, impact and sustainability are key concerns of many donors out there. Yeah, so again, tends to be rushed, but you need to look through it, yeah, and show how your thing will be impactful, and also leverage other things that you've done that have continued. So in Kilifi, yeah, we introduced a beekeeping project as part of a thing of alleviating poverty and reducing environmental degradation. Yeah, so by the time the project ended, when we started the project, there were only 2 bee farmers with a total of 15 hives. By the time the project ended, we had 832 farmers, yeah, with a total of 15,000 hives, yeah. And 4 years later, yeah, the project has grown, and now we have 1,200 farmers, yeah, who are making this amount of money, Yeah, so again, you're showing, even if you have no direct thing, you're showing, look, we've got a history of achieving impact. So if we tell you there's going to be impact, there's going to be sustainability, it is there, it's part of our DNA. Yeah. Work plan, you do this all the time, again, picking up the activities required, yeah, that you'd have identified, yeah, putting in timeframes that are realistic, again, putting in experience from our M&E. M&E is something, unfortunately, we do because we are largely forced, but we fail to realize that M&E is our research and development process, and it gives us things that can be competitive strengths in a proposal. So if you go out and you say, look, the traditional cost of delivering ARVs to patients is, let's say, $2 per person, but our approach has been able then to deliver the same ARVs to people at $1.50. Or the traditional, the common industry standard or average cost of delivering a borehole, yeah, in this geographical area of Migori, yeah, is an average of 2 million shillings per borehole or well, yeah. But in our approach, then we've been able consistently to deliver the same thing for 1.6 million. Then already you're beginning to, yeah. But again, those are aspects of impact, sustainability, again, methodology. But one thing then I would also want then to add on the work plan is talking to people we often ignore. And this also impacts on the budget. So you want to hold workshops in Migori, in Siaya, and you're based in Nairobi, and Kakamega, and you're based in Nairobi, yeah, is how much fuel does the car, let's say the Land Rover Cruiser, we have got one, consume to move from here to Migori? Can we do it in one day? Yeah, how much fuel will it take? What are the costs involved in that? From our debt data in finance, I think there is Lillian Boyer here. There's a lot of information that goes into finance that ends up being debt data. Again, I'm talking about the budgeting process. Is from experience, if we've been running workshops for the last 10 or 15 years, we should be able to say that holding an average, and in a workshop of 20 people, yeah, that is held in Nakuru, yeah, will cost an average of 1,500 shillings per day. Yeah, a similar workshop held in Kisumu will cost an average of 1,600 per day. A similar workshop held in Nairobi will cost 1,800 or 2,200 per day because the data is there. But many times then we don't go back and use that data. We don't learn from it. So when it comes down to issues of proposal writing, but as well as issues of developing strategies, then that data becomes useless to us. Yeah. So I hope you're together till now. We still have another 45 minutes. Management staffing, you have a great proposal out there, but can you deliver the proposal? Yes, you're great. I mean, beautiful ideas. It was the best amongst everyone. But do you have the team to be able to deliver it? Do you have the expertise? Do you have the skills? Yeah, that becomes a major question that the donor will be asking. And this is one area where the KPMG, the PricewaterhouseCoopers, and the contractors beat us in. And many of the times you've seen people like PACT, for example, not the PACT in Uganda, or PATH and others, Family Health, FHI 360, advertise for people coming in. So chief of party amongst other positions. Our tendency is to try ensure that we can force as many of our own internal people to continue in this project. So one time Mike is a community development strategist. Another time he's gone to water. In a different project, he's become an agroforestry specialist, yeah, which tends to weaken things further. But on top of it, then we pick up CVs without really taking the time to develop them. So Mike is told send your CV because the donors ask. He sends his CV in whatever format it is put. Yeah. Jane sends a format, it is put. Geoffrey sends his format, it is put. Yeah, no one is really focusing on what that CV is saying. So Mike has talked about the primary school he went in, nursery, primary. Yeah, mentioned that he's done 1 million courses, put in all the transcripts he did in university within that thing, mentioned his tribe, married, all that is sent. Another one has followed the World Bank approach, so focused on different. So this whole thing about management staffing, having the right people learn fast becomes important. Presenting them well, yeah, becomes the other significant aspect. So not everyone can be from the organization. Some projects you look out and say, then we'll go out and either recruit people for this position or identify people who will be willing to come work with the project should we be successful. And in an environment where donors have forced many of our organizations to be project-oriented, meaning that every 1 to 3 years, 1 to 3 year contracts are common. So you train people, they leave after a year, leave after 2 years, 3 years because a project ended. And further on, because no one wants to be left hanging, if they've got a mortgage, is I've got a 2-year contract, after year 1, I'm already looking for another job. So 6 months to the end, I have abandoned ship. So there's a lot of instability on that thing, meaning all these people are ending up in a sector pool. So our HR policy, our project policy should always be looking out for talent and saying, if Geoffrey becomes available, we should be able then to use him in our proposal. Yeah, I went to a particular workshop, I noticed Ronald is a very sharp guy. I should put him in my proposal. Yeah, I've noticed Catherine is doing a lot of work in the ground. I mean, a lot of the communities talk about her quite a bit. She's very effective on the ground. In a proposal, yeah, if Catherine is available, can we use her? Yeah, so going out, avoiding incest, being able to go out and pick up a strong team, yeah, that can give you a fighting chance. And secondly, whether you're using outsiders or insiders, yeah, is being able to present them strongly. In my first job, again, I mentioned how we went out and looked for jobs. In my first job, one of the things I'd do, yeah, in addition to writing proposals, and by the way, the proposals I wrote, yeah, we always won on the technical thing. There's only one in the entire 5 years I was with them that became second. Only one. Yeah, we'd always lose because the CEO would put in a budget that was too expensive. But on the technical parts, we always won in any proposal that I put in. Yeah, but also then the other thing came down to consultants and experts and associates. We get people from universities and jobs and other consultants, but we had to spend a lot of time talking to them and rewriting and panel beating those things to make them powerful and a great asset in enabling us then get the funding that we're looking at. Sustainability I've talked about quite a bit. Yeah, but again, it's going to be a question. We've mentioned the fact that you can relate to other activities that you have that have remained sustainable. Yeah, but also by extension, yeah, showing how communities will run with it. So we did a water project and we've been working with the women. Yeah, so from the 4th year of the project or the last year of the project is the women will be given increasing responsibility to run it, and they'll be able then to charge small fees for its repair and to earn an income from it going forward. So it'll win, yeah? Or from experience, we've realized that projects that are, water projects that are put on institutional or personal land have a greater sustainability prospect than those that are put on communal land, yeah? So in the last 10 years of the same projects that we put out, yeah, and 90% of those that were given to a women's group or put on someone's land continued. But those that were put in communal land, only 20% are sustainable. So in this project, we are recommending 1, 2, 3, 4 things. That helps. Yeah, so instead of giving too many promises, again, tie this thing to what you or other organizations have done to be able to show the donor that sustainability is a great thing. So I think my last things are going to focus largely on budget. Again, we are saying it's the financial translation of your work. So always going back, yeah, in your proposal and looking at every single point that you put. So if you mentioned that you're going to advertise, yeah, the jobs of the project team they are going to recruit, make sure, and in the papers, yeah, make sure there's a budget for it. Again, advertising means that in any of our dailies, if you're going to take a significant space, 100,000, 80,000, 150,000, depending on what you're going to be advertising and for how long, is if that is not in the budget, then you end up with problems. Yeah, there's the thing again of guesswork. Yeah, not talking one to finance. Finance, again, we are saying is a graveyard of a lot of important information. So whether we want to do cost, whether we want to know the cost of getting people from point A, B, maintaining staff in a particular thing, organizing a community meeting, that information is there. Yeah, but once it ends up in the finance office, we forget. Can we involve finance people more? And can we digest and distill that information more so it becomes a competitive strength in writing the proposal, not just the budget itself, but the entire proposal? Yeah. Guesswork, again, going under. How much does a vehicle cost? Land Rover, how much do you think it costs? Nadia, 4 million. Okay, put 4 million down. Then we do our budget again. We discover then the donor is only willing to give us 5 million, 10 million. Yeah, we've ended up with a budget of 16 million. We need to start cutting. So this Land Rover, cut it down to 3 million. Those computers, cut it down to. So you already begin to end up with an unrealistic budget because it's not based on actual costs out there. Yeah. Then secondly, what happens is, again, we've mentioned that if you win the project, how are you going to implement it when you're short of resources? Yeah. Each of these projects should be an opportunity, again, we're repeating, to be able to develop a long-term relationship with that donor, meaning it has to be realistic. You need to be able, again, to quote, yeah, and write, include your budget notes and say, yeah, why you're using particular quantities or you're buying particular items, yeah, and the rationale behind it. So if things don't make sense, if you wanted to work with 20,000 community members, cut it down to 10,000 or 15,000, whatever it is. A particular strategy used. Yeah, you wanted to run a physical workshop for farmers, but the budget is well through the roof. Can you change your strategy to something else? Farmer field schools that are far cheaper and use that. Can you change the timings so that you don't need to buy lunch? They come after lunch or something like that, yeah? So you need to be very careful about this. Contingency amounts, yes, many donors will not support the 10%, some will, but many won't. But in many of the cases, then be careful about foreign exchange changes. Again, this is stuff that you know, but also then putting in a small allowance that ensures that if the price goes up due to inflation or fluctuation, that you'll still be able to purchase that and pay for it, yeah, or actualize your budget. In-kind support is important, yeah, not just financial support, and your contribution, because many times is we understate what we are doing. So especially when you're leveraging another donor. So whether it's the time of your staff, your office space, your facilities, yeah, when donors see that you are also putting in your contribution, it becomes more attractive. Yeah, so some donors will give you full grants. Others will insist a 5, 10%, whatever it is. But when a donor sees that you've got a stake in that project and you're putting something in, it tends to make them more productive. And one reason why the INGOs tend to be more successful than we are in mobilizing resources, many of the times they'll be willing to put in something. So they'll say, we'll provide 20%, 10%, 50% of our budget. We go with a begging bowl and we want to put in nothing. So even if we don't have the actual cash to put in, always actualize. What is the community doing? The community will provide labor. The community will provide free sand and ballast for this material. The community will do, or the community volunteers will be responsible for the home visits. Yeah, so the community health workers will be voluntary. So had we paid for this, it'll be ABCD. So try also capture anything that can show the donor that you're contributing to this. So budget lines, yeah, those will vary, but many donors, again, if it's not speculative, will give you a template that you can respond to. Yeah, so let me leave it there. And I believe we should have, we have 35 minutes for questions. Nadia will help me in case I don't see any. So maybe let's just have a discussion, pick up questions, comments from everyone around here. I've got 35 minutes and see what you agree with, what you disagree with, what your experiences are. Yeah, and so on. So thank you very much. So any comments, any input?
So far, there is no questions in the chat. So I'm just inviting everyone, if you have anything to share, experiences even that you've been through, successes, setbacks, please, this is an open space. It will help us all if we hear from one another.
So anyone with anything to say? Linda?
Mike.
Their hand up, I haven't seen.
Mike?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can see I can see why we get some of the regrets in the proposals that we send out.
Yeah.
And I think there's been a lot of exciting new learnings, particularly on the budgeting section.
Yeah.
And the cost share element and the kind of CVs that we should put on our proposal.
Yeah.
So I think there's small things there, but are very, 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 very important.
Yeah.
In giving a winning proposal. So I could see we have these things there, but we've been leaving them out because we didn't know that they're important.
Yeah.
So we'll be calling on you for more conversations. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. And there's a friend of mine I have in Kisumu. I mean, small organization, still small, started very passionate about what they do and they go out. But in many of the cases, I mentioned this earlier, is I've seen proposals where, I mean, they're in the devolution space, governance, corruption. There are cases where you can see what they're doing. They're the only organization around here. They've got strong credentials. They've got a 90% chance of getting it. And you'll tell this guy, look, this thing has come through. Start working on this thing in time. Yeah, but he's rushed off for a village funeral. He's sitting in this workshop. A partner's called. He's in this meeting. Then 3 days to the thing, he starts panicking. And he's putting together this thing, of course, no research, no nothing about the donor try. Yeah. And I mentioned on 2 of those occasions, he's fallen sick, malaria, and he's had to go in. So he's pulling you in. But at that last minute, you can only do so much. Yeah, you can't go in depth into really developing a good strategy to help him out. Your focus is trying to get the proposal out at that step. Yeah, so freshness, we talked about time. I know there are those of us, I think Ronald commented on it, who say we have enough time. The biggest problem is resource mobilization in our organizations is not a priority. The number one priority is implementation. But if you talk about Coke, every bottle of Coke we buy is already a marketing budget line already in that Coke. So whatever we are buying, it used to be 1 shilling. I don't know what it is right now. So if we are not then going to invest, not only in terms of cash resources, but time when we are fresh. And that's why we are saying when you look at challenge funds, it's young people. Why are young people winning? Because they are not in our sector. They've got new ideas. They don't have this organization culture of doing things the same way. Yeah. They've got new ideas. So they look at different things, come up with a radical idea, innovative, send it out there. And they have the time to do it because they have laptops or tablets. So they'll sit in their pajamas or half dressed in their rooms, concoct these ideas and send it out. When Mike is trying to write this proposal at 11 o'clock, he's been harassed, he's driven through traffic, he's tired, his kid is all over him. I mean, how good is my proposal going to be? Yeah, so many of the chances, again, I'm just reiterating some of the other points. So suitability, yeah, if you go for the ones in which you've got a competitive chance, you can focus on them. And it means maybe out of every 10 proposals you write that year, yeah, you've got a strong chance of winning 4, 5, 6 of them. Yeah, but if you write to everything that comes, you're shooting like an AK-47 in every direction and you're not being focused like a sniper, the chances of winning then are far reduced. So copy paste, let's forget. Yeah, let us focus on these things like a lawyer. So I'm going to the Supreme Court. I'm presenting my case to this donor. The Supreme Court is the donor. Yeah, the jury is out there. Yeah, I'm going in against the best of the sector. What is my strategy? Yeah, these other guys are bigger. They manage more money. Us guys are smaller. Yeah, so you turn things in, David Goliath. Yeah? Tell them, for example, look, we believe because from experience, SUVs like the Land Cruisers tend to distort community expectations. So whenever you drive in your Land Cruiser, yeah, people look at you and they think there's a lot of money. So it affects sustainability. It affects their willingness to participate. They want to be paid to come for workshops and other activities. So we then use public transport. So our people can ride with other members of the public. They can advocate when they need to through discussions. They can listen to what members of the public are saying. They can get into the village in a boda. and do the work that is necessary and get home, so they don't distort expectations. People won't demand money for workshops. You don't look like that rich NGO, and it's better for sustainability. Of course, you're not going to tell the donor even though you want that SUV, you can't afford it. It's just that you're turning that point to your advantage. You don't have it, so how do you turn it into a strength? How do you turn that lemon into lemonade? That is what fundraising strategy is about. So anyone else after Jane? Thanks a lot again, Jane, for your input.
Yeah, Mike, we have a contribution from Dan.
Please, thanks Nadia for spotting them out. Dan, please.
Yes, mine was the question. I was with my experience in resource mobilization, my interaction with donors, so many calls for proposals I've responded to. I just wanted to find out from your experience, and I don't know if Nadia will be compelled to comment as well, but have you ever encountered any temptation with experience working with donors, where donors already have names of organizations in mind, despite calling for proposals? Because I'm asking this because of sometimes the feedback that we receive from the donors. And then later on, when we realize what was funded elsewhere, and the feedback you got, you do know that maybe the donor just didn't want to fund me, or they wanted to fund organization X. I don't know what's your experience.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dan. And you know, one of the sad things is we've talked about corruption, loss of values in society. Yeah, and many of the times then we don't really internalize what the impact is. Because if there's a lot of corruption out there, if there's a lot of lack of values, favoritism, and so on, is essentially these things come then to haunt us when we're dealing with the institutions. So whether it is a donor, whether it is a company, whether it is a church or religious organization or government, it's the same. Yeah. So increasingly, there are things we've got worried about. One trend I would say that further solidifies this, and I'm not saying Africans have a problem, so don't get me wrong, is unlike in the past when the donor used to be a white Anglo, a WASP, so white Anglo-Saxon male, is it was male, then became women, then became African men and women with them. So at one time, if Nadia, for example, had gone into a village 20 years ago, should have been asked, where is your donor? When is the donor coming? Because people didn't expect a black woman, or an African woman to be the donor. So in many of our donors these days, they become more specialized, specific. So you'll find a lot of local people, a lot of Africans working in different portfolios. So that provides context. Secondly, this whole thing we've created with corruption and greed has led to a lot of deals right across. So there are people who've been called and asked for bribes. And it's happening. And there are cases where the donor tells you, even don't worry, just send me the receipts, I'm the one who'll organize. There are those who will give people they want to give. And I know we were dealing with a case again last year. I was advising an organization that had got into that thing where again money disappeared, but it's a problem that relates to the donor. So you want to give an organization that will give you a cut. So that corruption, lack of values comes in. So you already know who you're going to give. You're just going through the motions to make it look like it is okay. With time, you become more careful. And one of the, I don't know what it is like these days, UNDP, more than two decades ago, was reputable for quite a bit of corruption. And I'm not out to spoil their name, but that was the situation 2 decades ago. It meant that one, you had to bribe to get the money in. And again, a lot of people used to get in were ex-government. Nothing against government then. I'm just defining a situation that happened then. So no ill will mentioned. And that was 20 years ago. It's not now. So you'd have to give a cut to win the thing. So whenever there was a call and people won, people would be asking, is the organization corrupt? Did you pay? Then even when you get the money, is to get paid by your thing, your tranches. Again, you have to part with more money. So it's not the organization, it is the individuals who got into that organization. Another experience 2 years ago with an organization, I was coaching a group of organizations, but one told me how someone had told them, look, I've talked to the donor. Again, one of the UN agencies, there's a project, I won't name it. If you guys give so much money each, you'll be on the list. So he refused. But all the ones who got money are the ones who coughed out money. So again, yeah, so these are challenges that we are facing. But again, when you look at suitability, if you are not corrupt or you abhor it, is you'll blacklist certain donors and know that donor, yeah, they are corrupt people, or this donor favors people from their own country. So the recent USAID call that was on the localization agenda for HIV and AIDS, I don't know whether people like Wilfred followed it, but I know for the 5 organizations that won, it was supposed to be local organizations. Only one, yeah, was really a local organization, Chuck. Yeah, all the others were World Vision, Kenya. I have nothing against World Vision. Yeah, I've worked with them before, people like Path Kenya. So that thing tells you then for this donor, my chances are very low. Don't send a proposal there. Yeah, I mentioned the one I shared with someone last night, and today morning he said it's single award. From experience, single award will go to an American institution, it won't come to us. Yeah, so all those things come down into your suitability thing and say, what are the chances that we can win this thing? If your chances are not high, then don't waste the time, unless you want to go in a consortium. Lastly, the point I mentioned, Dan, is we'll always have our biases. People give money to people. Yeah, so in class, the lecturer, the teacher always believes that Dan is a bright kid, number one. So when he or she is marking your papers, yeah, or listening to your answers, they know you are bright. So they are already marking or evaluating you from a top student. But if they know Mike is not intelligent, they'll always look at whatever I produce as being, not measuring up to standard. So they'll mark me differently. So if we've got an organization we've been working with over time and they have high view of us, the chances of them winning that donor funding are much higher than you who's coming in as a stranger. So people give money to people and relationships. Let me end by tying it down to COVID. One thing we realized last year is many organizations suffered. It was a bad year for most civil society organizations, but there are some organizations that did extremely well. Yeah, and one defining factor in all those organizations was relationships. They had strong relationships and they had a name for delivery. They demonstrated impact. So these donors didn't have time to roll out projects in a hurry. So what did they do? They went back to partners who they trusted and knew could deliver and gave them the money. So many of these have told us they made more money last year than they've ever made. There is a partner organization in Uganda, I won't name which one, where we had to have a discussion 3 times. You are saying, Mike, do we stop writing proposals? I mean, we have too much money. It is enough. And Mike would say, don't you dare, you are in 8 thematic areas. Because if you stop this year and the donor changes, or they put it out and a small organization comes that is hungry for that donor, they have no other funding or very little funding, they'll be focused. And if they get in and they're better than you, then that donor is gone. So Dan, I've beaten around the bush, but I'm just emphasizing the different aspects that come in that decision. So some could be corrupt, like we've said, and I don't want to get too much into the details I've already spoken to. Some could come from reputation and aspects. But lastly, is one thing they call a donor blacklist. And first heard it from guys from the African Development Bank. There's a guy who told us about it. There's a blacklist out there. And you went out, you took donor money and you messed up a project, or you are corrupt or something happened and you are blacklisted. Yeah, or you took money from several donors from the same thing and it didn't happen. Because donors these days talk, they spear. Yeah, they spear learning. And you end up on the blacklist. So you can be there for 5-7 years. So you write proposals, everything looks so good. Then at the last step, you're always disappointed. Maybe it's not you as a fundraiser. Maybe someone in the organization messed up before and you'll pay for it for 7 years. Like, so many other issues.
I have a question, Mike, just in follow up to what Dan had raised.
Yeah.
And, not so much just about donors that have, so thinking about this issue of preferences or biases, or even just relationships, not from a corrupt standpoint, but just, donors who know organizations and know them well. Could you elaborate on how relationship building can be a support to proposal development, and at what stage in the process should we be emphasizing this? So like person to person networking and relationship cultivation.
And yeah, thanks, Nadia. So that is critical to sustainable long-term resource mobilization. So whether you're going to get in speculative, so get in, begin to talk to the donor and hopefully get money down the line, or you're going to send them a proposal at some point, that relationship building, underpins successful giving of money. And it means then for those who've managed to get in with a small project and they've done well and built that over time, they've got huge credibility, social capital that always ensures they have an edge over everyone else. And in fact, if I stretch that further, one of the reasons why competitive bidding or competitive proposals are out there is because things got so comfortable for the big organizations, the plans and the action aids, for example, with the governments of the UK or the Netherlands, is they would always win this thing. So the moment then those relationships were dismantled, first, the process was made competitive. Secondly, they had independent people, evaluating these proposals. Then it disrupted relationships. And it meant then for some of them, like I remember people like Plan and the rest, who lost 10 million euros and the rest, they had to send a lot of people home, because it was a situation that had never happened. So relationships are fundamental. But secondly, then coming in to the fact that donors no longer compete. I remember many years ago, when I was running an organization that was supported by the British, and we had been talking to the Dutch, and we had a good thing, the Dutch were interested. Eventually, we didn't get Dutch funding, which was supposed to be 50% co-funding, because the British didn't want the Dutch getting into their project. Donors used to have these silos that would say, these are my people, they're doing well, go develop your own. So everyone wanted to keep the good organizations and didn't want. That has changed. So there's a lot of donor learning, peer learning, sharing. So it means that on one hand, they can blacklist you, but on the other hand, they can give a good word. And we say the fundraising guru, when it comes down to even fundraising beyond proposals, is one where your donor picks up the phone and says, you discuss and says, look, we can't give you that much. The most I can give you is $500,000. But let me talk to my friend at Danida, or talk to my friend at Finida, or let me talk to someone in Ford Foundation and see what they can do. So that donor intervention is huge, because it's peer-to-peer. It does more wonders than you could. You're looking at issues, for example, of the donor roundtables. You try call these people in, getting them in is difficult, but if your donor is calling these people in, it's easier because it's peer-to-peer. And getting the donor to raise money from you again, still around that point of relationships, is the donor likes you and likes your work. You've developed a relationship because it's moved beyond that static thing. You've got to the point where you say, how is your son? How is your daughter? Oh, she passed exams, congratulations. You're happy, Republican Day, whatever it is, you wish them things. You meet them, you give them pecs, you're relaxed, you know each other, you built a relationship, it becomes different. Then she tells you, look, we need to get this thing in, but your proposal is a bit weak on environmental aspects, but the environmental officer owes me a favor, because I supported a project they really liked. So I'll talk to the environmental officer and see whether he can push this through. Or alternatively, they tell you, look, wait a minute, because the head of delegation who's supposed to sign off of this, is very difficult to convince, and is not really for renewing partnerships. He wants us to reduce the partners we're working with, but I know that he's going for leave, in another 2 months. So let's hold on. And when he's out, the person who's going to be acting is a very good friend and very easy. So let's pass. So when the donor now becomes your fundraiser within the donor agency and talks to other donors, again, you're in another world, altogether. But that comes down to relationships, to impact, and a relationship that is honest, where you say, look, Nadia, we talked about this thing, it looked like a good idea, but unfortunately, Yeah, the $50,000 we invested this project failed miserably. I don't even know what to tell you. It was a disaster. Yeah, so that 50,000 is gone. You've got that honest kind of relationship. On the other hand, you say, we thought this thing wouldn't do as well. It's done extremely well. Yeah, would like to invest more money in it. Is because again, in your organizations, if you're telling any donor that everything worked 100%, your reports are 100% success, you are lying. It can't happen in the real world unless you look at a very simplistic thing. Yeah, so relationships allow you to discuss the good and the bad. Relationships allow the donor officer to transfer you to say, look, I am leaving. Yeah, can we get the next person in? So-and-so is coming in, come in, I'll introduce you, I'll take you around the office, I'll give you. So they hand you over to the next person coming in. It's all relationships. So the proposals get you into the door, but the relationships need your work, which means then the CEOs in this room, the Wilfreds, the James and others, yeah, have to be focusing much more on relationships, on partnerships, yeah, on developing new ground that allows them to be able to put in a proposal 3-4 years from now, and not doing work that some of their teammates or colleagues could be doing. So we really need to be looking at where we value our time. Where are we investing our time? Is it on relationships? In USA, I'll end by saying, I know we've been told in the past that sometimes you'll end up with 3 strong organizations in a call, but sometimes number 3 gets it. They say, look, number 1 or 2, you have other projects. Number 3 is having financial problems. Let's give it to number 3. Yeah, so it's not always the one that had the best proposal that is given the work. Other mitigating things will come in depending on the relationships. So I hope then I've nailed it and not gone off in a tangent, Nadia and Dan.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Sorry, Nadia, better in seeing hands than I am.
There are no hands, so unless anyone has a question, please just, or anything, an experience you want to contribute, you're most welcome. Just unmute yourself and introduce yourself and go ahead and share.
Okay.
We have another 12 minutes for the session.
Okay, one thing as we wait for someone, I'll also mention the thing again of strategy, is you don't have to write all the proposal. And sometimes again, yeah, you don't even have to write any proposal. Yeah, you need to look at yourself in the development ecosystem and see what you're good at. If you decide you're much stronger in implementing, is you can act like the secretary bird that sits on the elephant. Yeah, it's out there, it provides a useful role because it picks off all the ticks and insects. And the elephant is happy enough to have it there. It's a win-win relationship. So there'll be strong partners out there who are great in writing proposals, doing the donor intelligence, picking up, because some of the people we are competing with, especially when you look at these contractors, is they already knew 2-3 years ago that the program was being developed. They knew. Yeah, because they go to these embassies, even when they visit you, tell you, take me to the US embassy, take me to the Netherlands embassy. They know these programs are being built. They have recruited the right capacity child officers into the organization in advance because they know it's going to be tendered. They know how big it is. Yeah, they have the intelligence. Yeah, so by the time the call is officially put out and we are now starting to write, yeah, it's not a fair race. We find out that this call was for 2 months, 60 days, or 30 days, or 45 days, whatever it is, or 90. But we are finding out, let's say, 20 days to the call itself. Yeah, our competitors have been preparing for this thing even before it was called out. And when they are told run, they're already ahead of us. It becomes very difficult. Yeah, so we say then, if you're very good in implementing, start thinking carefully about what you say about yourself, your visibility, branding. Your social media has become important. Short, tough stories. We are circulating a lot of things on our WhatsApp and other things. Make sure then you're able to tell your stories in different forums. The donor could be one of the alumni in your school groups, one of the alumni in your church groups, one of the alumni is in your rugby team. Yeah, they are there, they're with us. So these things that you're sending out, if you can create something, a touching story. Yeah, the lady was eating stones in, was it Kilifi? Cooking stones so that she could cheat her children that the soup, the water that came from it was soup. So it means it was dirty. Yeah. That kind of story got a lot of attraction. But remember, the donors are in the sites that we're looking at. Yeah, the churches that we go, again, we talked about relationships with Nadia. So when you go to church, who is in your church? So whether it's a Mavuno, whether it is All Saints, whatever church we are going to, yeah, do we know the people inside there? Are we developing relationships? So if SK Macharia goes to my church, and I know especially men tend to be very territorial, they'll normally sit in the same place if they have the chance and come in roughly the same time. Yeah, how do I make sure that I'm able to sit near where he sits? And when he sits there, yeah, I tell him, yeah, you look like someone. Are you SK Macharia? Yeah, oh, I always watch Citizen. Great story. But one thing I want you to tell me is, did you really walk from Kenya, yeah, to Egypt and take a ship to the UK? And of course, people like talking about themselves. So he begins to talk. But you see, you talk this week, you talk next week, you become friends. He invites you and says, oh, why don't you? I'm going home for dinner. Can you join us for lunch? Can you join us? You're building a relationship. But the goodies are going to come down the line. So these donors, yes, we mentioned the corruption problem we are facing, but there are a lot of good donors and ethical people out there. Yeah. Are we using these different forums beyond the 8 hour routine from 8 o'clock to, I don't know, 5? Are we using all these other forums to begin to foment relationships that give us donor intelligence, that allow us to be proactive? Because another thing we've been seeing is, yes, when you do your donor mapping as part of your proposal writing, what do you find? Perfect thing. The embassy of the government of Finland is interested in what they do. Then at the bottom there, they've identified an organization they are working with. So yes, the budget is there, but it's not for you. Yeah, it has its owners. Why is that? Because when we are running around in the field, their top management, their CEOs were talking to these donors. So they visit them, they share issues, challenges, they send them reports that have come out, make calls, invite them to visit them. So they've been cultivating a relationship. So by the time even the money is allocated, yeah, it has its owners. So relationships, strategy, yeah, all these things are connected. Getting into the proposal itself, the donor mapping, the people you choose, the partners you work with, yeah, looking out for partners with good track records of winning proposals. If a donor usually gives in country, yeah, and I'm finishing in 2 minutes, Nadia. Yeah, so if the partner normally gives in country, yeah, let us get an NGO, a credible partner from that country, and let us work together. So that becomes a Trojan horse. Yeah, if we are weak on something but strong, let's get into a consortium. So even if we just get 10, 20% or 30% of the money, at least we've got a track record with that donor. Yeah, so we need to be strategic about that exercise beyond just writing a few words on, yeah, it used to be paper, yeah, and sending it out. So let me end there, unless there's any other comment or question. Yeah, Nadia?
Thank you so much, Mike. I am walking away from today with the word strategy over and over and over. Strategy, like every aspect of this is not haphazard, and it is really about being deliberate, being focused, and having a clear strategy from beginning to end. I just want to open this up if there's any last kind of closing reactions, questions, thoughts from everyone in the group. And maybe I'll just throw something in there. One of the things that stood out to me from the very beginning of the presentation, and that I just want to highlight, I think we underestimate the importance of following instructions. And I can say that from our perspective as Bloodwater, when we're looking for new partners and we send out an RFA, the first short list that we do is on following instructions, and that aspect of word count. Would you believe that if one section is over the word count, even by 1 or 5 words, that organization will be disqualified? And we take those following instructions, reading the directions very, very seriously, because for us, that is an indication of what the relationship will look like after. Yeah. So I just want to reiterate that as something so small, yeah, and you think may not be that important, but to follow instructions in submitting a proposal and submitting a concept will be the first foot in the door for an organization like Bloodwater. And will get you into the next stage and can bring you from a pool of 200 applicants to 50. And so I would just echo that as being a really, really important step and criteria that gets you from a big pool into a smaller shortlisted pool, and to never underestimate the power of that, adhering to those guidelines.
Yeah. And thanks, Nadia, for reiterating that point. It's those small things, because there are a lot of good proposal writers here, but normally a lot of the things that undermine us are tiny things like that.
Yeah.
And some donors, sorry, Nadia?
Sorry, Jane has made a contribution in the chat. Focus on relationship building in resource mobilization is key. And Wilfred is just expressing, I think, just more appreciation on the presentation being very helpful and putting the task of proposal writing into context.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, we have 4 minutes. I'll say then, one of the weaknesses we've had is normally the proposal is written by 1 or 2 people within the organization. So when it comes through, everyone is happy it's there. But you'll have 1 or 2 people pushing it, which kind of limits the strength of our organization going forward. This silo thing is really hurting us. But very importantly, then the work stops. We feel that what money has come in, we are okay. There are donors who, I know, have terminated a lot of projects, like David used to be one. Yeah, just after the first tranche. Yeah, because you didn't deliver. There's an organization whose board I used to sit. Again, where the thing was terminated, one thing with Danida after the first tranche, because the CEO had issues. I don't want to get into it, but the CEO had issues of competing with his program person. And even to get that money in, we had to tell him, stand aside, let the program person do it. So she went ahead, she got the money in, but he killed that project, yeah, within 1 quarter. So always look at that thing as a step in. So when you're there, deliver on what you promised. And that's why your proposal should be on things you can deliver and over-deliver. Yeah, write reports, deliver impact, but deliver on what you promised and be honest, because that now lays the foundation for your next project. So the moment you start implementing, remember you are fundraising for your next project. And even if you don't get funding from that organization itself, is a peer award will be useful to you. Remember, again, donor staff move from one organization to the other. So they might be in DFID today, next time they're in Danida. Again, that helps you. But again, if they like what you're doing, they're willing to leverage their reputation by selling you to other partners who can support you because they really like the work that you're doing. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much for your comments. Thanks, Nadia. I know you're also taking the recording. And this presentation, I will email it. Again, you have it already, Nadia. Yes. So Nadia will share it with you. But thank you again for taking the time to join us for this webinar. Thanks, Nadia.
Yes, thank you so much, Mike. This has been tremendously insightful and helpful. And I just want to encourage everyone who's attended and those who are listening, watching after the fact, just, continue to share within this community your experiences, your learning. We are, as Bloodwater, are always looking to share opportunities with you, which is a great segue. Let me just give you a prompt. The next upcoming webinar is going to be actually what we're calling a collaborator roundtable, which we will be introducing a new funding partner for our community of partners. So it will be more of, again, just an opportunity to build relationships with a new donor, a new potential donor. And we'll be sharing the details. We're just in the process now of finalizing the date with that representative. It is most likely going to be in July. And then after that, the next upcoming series of webinars is a leadership masterclass. So over a 5-week session will be a very targeted homework is involved and learning is involved. doing work with your teams is involved, we'll be sending out the details for that in July as well. So a little bit of a break from our webinar series, shifting gears for relationship building and a masterclass. Thank you so much to everyone for participating, and we will be sharing, as Mike said, not only just the recording, but the materials, and we are looking forward to staying connected. So thank you all and have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Again.
Thank you.
Thank you.